If there's one thing I want Nintendo to do better, it's just straight up better endings with their video games. I mean, seriously, an ending should be a cultivation of everything that the game had as a whole. All the little pieces coming into one final battle, all the items and special abilities that you've used throughout the game being used in a proper way for a final fight and a final ending to close out the game. And HAL Labs is a company that definitely knows how to do that. With Kirby, their endings are absolutely insane, and I've already made videos talking about this before, but I want to talk about how HAL Labs needs to transition that with all the other developers, because they need to tell them how to do the thing. Because my biggest problem right now, I think, with Nintendo is 90% of their games have some of the most boring and lackluster endings. If you don't believe me, here's just a couple of examples. With Kirby Triple Deluxe, you have so many different parts to an ending here. First off, you fight masked King Dedede in 2 different forms before even moving on to Phase 2. Phase 2 has you fighting the main antagonist, being Queen Sectonia, and she uses the background in almost a 3D perspective in order to fight you, which is this game's main mechanic. As a 3DS game, lots of the game takes place in the background and foreground interactions, and that's exactly how she fights you in Phase 2. Then, in the next phase, you and King Dedede team up with a cannon, where King Dedede shoots Kirby at these little flowers on the vine, and it's your job to aim and shoot at the right time in order to break these flowers down. Then you fight the true final boss, which is a giant vine flower version of Queen Sectonia now, and yeah, it just gets crazier and crazier as you continue on, as you have to take out her flower pods to do damage. But then after you do that, you're still not finished, as you get Hypernova Kirby, and you get to use the main gimmick of the game now at the final boss, where you have to suck up all these bomb seed pods and spit them back at Queen Sectonia in order to defeat her. It even reincorporates the gyro controls, which is something that you've used throughout the entire basis of the game. And what's even crazier is if you play the true arena, there's yet again another phase of this boss battle, the Soul of Sectonia, that you have to defeat. There's just so much here at the end of the game. Kirby Planet Robobot was the same way, where you had to fight President Haltman in this weird 3D/2D arena where you went around this giant circle, shooting him with stars and attacking him with his own weapons that he would shoot at Kirby. Phase 2 will have Kirby merging with the battleship Halberd and fighting Stardream in space, which is like this supercomputer in the galaxy, which is just insane. And yeah, you have this giant kind of 2D point 3D shoot 'em up type of thing, kind of Star Fox style, and it's really unique and interesting for the series. But then it jumps into Phase 2, where it merges with its home base, and it's a whole different fight altogether, where you have to break apart the metal plating of the entire planetoid. And then after you break apart the metal plating, you enter Phase 3, where you find out the machine was tied up to a galactic nova. Like, yeah, it's just absolutely insane story-wise, and it just keeps getting more crazy and crazy as the battle goes on. Now, yes, I guess the Robobot armor could have been used for a lot more in this battle than just, you know, this quick time button press situation, but still, I think it works really well, and it's a great way to end the battle with something that you use pretty much the entire game. And once again, if you play the true arena, there's another phase where you go inside the machine and fight its metal heart, which is just crazy. And even this battle itself has 2 phases. And finally, Kirby jumps into 3D with Forgotten Land, and they still don't even hold up for their first 3D debut. Yeah, your first fight will be against Wild Forgo DDD, which is an intense King Dedede boss battle with a couple of phases of its own. Right after that, you'll fight one of the main antagonists, being Leongar, that also has 2 phases as well. Nope, he wasn't the main antagonist. There's some type of alien creature that's been pulling the strings from the background the entire time as well. Fecto Forgo starts chasing you down a hallway where you have to battle the thing and also run at the same time, which is a great change of pace. And then, after that, there's the true final boss against the alien itself, being Fecto Elphalus, which truly puts you in a giant 3D arena to fight this guy. This is an insane boss battle that also has 2 phases as well, really keeps you on your toes and hits you with every single melee and projectile attack that you can even think of. It really puts you to the ultimate test based on how to dodge and get away from enemy attacks in this game. Still, you're not done, because there's one final phase where you go mouthful mode on a semi, and Kirby essentially just rams the semi into Fecto Elphalus in order to defeat him for good in a small QuickTime event. This is what makes an ending to a video game. But the point I'm trying to make is I want other Nintendo IPs to do this as well. It should feel like a climactic ending to a game. It should put together all the things that made the game great in order to make a final epic conclusion to your adventure. And so many Nintendo games just don't do this? Let's just go through them. I mean, look at the Mario series. For Super Mario Sunshine, all the different nozzles and all the different things that you do with cleaning up goop within this game, they instead just have a boss battle where you use the rocket nozzle in order to flip over a giant bathtub. Like, that's it? I always thought it would be so cool to have some type of giant goop-covered Bowser that you'd have to wash off slowly or something in order to get to his weak point. That would have been so cool, considering the fact that's what you do the entirety of the game. Mario Galaxy 1 had a great conclusion that incorporated lots of little mechanics from throughout the game, but Galaxy 2, I don't know what happened with this one. Why is the ground pound like the main mechanic of Galaxy 2? Is that what they really wanted to go with for a final boss? Just Mario farting on planets? And would you believe if I told you that Phase 2 was just even more of this? Like, I just would have loved it if the game incorporated more of its item abilities, like the Cloud Flower, or even the Boulder Suit, which was just like one of the coolest things ever. Being able to roll as a giant boulder felt like a great gimmick for a great final boss battle in some capacity. Maybe you and Bowser both raced as he was in a giant shell ball and you were in your boulder ball, and then eventually you had to run into him or something. And there were so many options. I love Mario 3D World, and I'm sure a lot of people actually still love the ending of this game, but to me it felt like a part 1 of what should have been like a part 2 or part 3. There was like nothing else besides climbing up a giant tower. You don't even fight Bowser. Instead, you just go up and hit a P-switch. I would have loved at the top if you actually had to fight him and his clones on top of the tower by jumping on their heads or something, or jumping on their hands as they try to climb up. Something like that could have been really cool, but just climbing up a tower never really felt like a boss battle, let alone an ending to a game. Before anyone tries to tell me, but Nintendo Land, you do fight Bowser. No, you just hit a power block that he's sitting on, and essentially you're just jumping up and down 4 times to fight a boss. I don't even want to get into the new Super Mario Bros. Games. I mean, they're all pretty daggone lackluster. Like, literally, new Super Mario Bros. DS is just the same exact thing as the original Mario Bros., which in this day and time is just crazy that that's a final boss battle. Walking past Bowser and hitting a switch, like, come on, Nintendo. New Super Mario Bros. Wii actually had an epic giant Bowser chase scene, but still, it just literally didn't feel like a boss battle to me. And yeah, as epic as it was, I still wanted to feel like I was fighting Bowser in some capacity, when in turn I was just running away from him slowly and getting ready to hit a switch. New Super Mario Bros. U actually had a lot better of a Phase 2 for Bowser, where you actually could fight him by using Bowser Jr.'s clown car and slamming it into his head. I actually really enjoyed this. But going back to New Super Mario Bros. 2, it's once again running from Bowser, but this time vertically, and then hitting a switch. What is up with Nintendo and Switch? Oh. I actually really did enjoy the rhythm-based final Bowser battle in Mario Wonder, but at the same time, you're hitting a switch again. No, but seriously, it's just weird that this game is literally all about Wonder Flowers. So I really thought the final boss in this game would be a crazy compilation of Wonder events where you turn into different things and Bowser turn into different things, and we'd have to fight him as the various different transformations that we've been throughout this game would have been really cool. So the fact that it was just us jumping on Bowser was kind of a letdown based on how original this game was in its base game. But yeah, I guess the boss battle itself was one giant Wonder event, and I get that, but I guess this could have just been saved for a final phase or something instead of the entire boss battle. I would have loved to see more Wonder events. And I had the same exact issue with Mario Odyssey, and you guys know I'm a huge supporter of this game. But I just hate the whole trope of fighting the main boss of the game halfway through the game the first time, and then fighting him again the second time at the end of the game is the same exact fight, just a little harder. I don't like that. Personally, I want something new, something completely original of an experience, and of course, turning into Bowser was insane, but still, I wish the actual Bowser fight did more before this scene even came up. I would have loved to actually use more captures. How in the world were there no captures used against the fight against Bowser? I think it'd been even better if Bowser had his own cappy himself, where he could capture things, so you had to battle his captures with your captures. Would have been really cool. Like, the whole gauntlet leading up to Bowser was really cool, but I wish they incorporated those captures in a boss fight, like turning into a bullet bill and ramming him, or turning into a Pokio and stabbing him to death. Once again, main mechanics of the game going underutilized when it comes to the final test. That final boss battle should be where those mechanics make a revisit, where they actually make a grand return, where you have to put all your skills to the test. Every capture that you've learned up until now, all your special moves that you've been working with the entire game. It shouldn't just be some random new thing that they slap in, such as taking Bowser's hat and punching him to death. And it's not just Mario. Lots of Nintendo franchises make the same mistake. Look at Skyward Sword from Zelda, where I thought it had a really good conclusion of running down the hill of the sealed grounds to fight a epic battle against Gyrohim, which I thought was insane. But then the battle against Demise, in my opinion, was just very lackluster. It felt like a very slow-paced, less anticlimactic battle compared to the Gyrohim fight right before it. I love the atmosphere and the arena and everything, but yeah, I just felt like the fight could have been a lot deeper, and there could have been more unique ways to swing your sword and puzzles that you had to look for and openings in his stances. But instead, it was kind of just like block and then just randomly swing your sword like crazy. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad ending at all, but still, I guess I was just really wanting a little bit more. And I know I'm probably going to get hate for this, but I also am not a fan of the Wind Waker ending whatsoever. Like, I love the whole puppet Ganon thing, and I thought that was pretty cool, but when it comes to actually fighting Ganon himself on top of the tower, it's very mediocre, where a lot of the times you're just waiting for the right time to press A when it pops up on screen and waiting for Zelda to shoot one of her random light arrows. Yeah, that's genuinely about it. Genuinely speaking, I really only had one singular complaint with Breath of the Wild, and it was the ending. I thought the entire game was a masterpiece from start to finish until I got to finish. One, if you literally just played the game and did all the dungeons you were supposed to do, you would actually get to obliterate the boss and take away half of his health, so it's a very short boss battle against this weird creepy mess of a Ganon, and then they take you outside, which I'm like, all right, it's really about to pick up. You get on your horse and you fight the world's biggest pig. Literally just a big pig that barely moves, and you just shoot these giant targets on its body with arrows. Yeah, I guess it was kind of climactic to jump up at the end and shoot the eye, but still, it was just like, this is it? This is the ending to this grand adventure that I just soaked up like 400 plus hours into? Like, yeah, it was a kind of a letdown. Tears of the Kingdom also had the same vibe to me, definitely better than Breath of the Wild's ending, but still, I wanted a little bit more. The gauntlet against all the enemies was pretty cool, but then you go into a final battle with Ganondorf, a 1v1 sword duel, which is, in my opinion, the Odyssey effect. Yep, once again, the fact that you actually fight this battle multiple times throughout the main course of the game. You can fight Phantom Ganon after you defeat the Gloomhands, which is essentially the same exact boss fight, and you also fight Phantom Ganon as a primary fight halfway through the game as one that you actually have to complete in order to get through the game. So personally, I was kind of thrown off by this, considering the fact that the Demon King himself is the exact same boss battle, where he slowly charges you, and it's very telegraphed to where you can commit Flurry Rush every single time. And everybody goes off about the health bar extension. Yeah, it was really cool that it got big, but it's still the same exact fight, you know, but now he can also do a Flurry Rush, so you're just both flurrying around. My problem is, if you ask anybody in the world what this game's main mechanic is, it's undoubtedly the Zonai devices and building things with those Zonai devices. So how in the world is there not one implication, small or big, of a Zonai device or some type of building, construction, anything within the final boss? I get it, it might come off as a little cheesy to stop and build a car in order to fight Ganondorf, but I would have loved a secondary phase before going into the final dragon fight, where you went to the overworld and maybe he could conjure up all types of crazy devices or things to try to fight you with, and you had to make some of your own or something. I don't know. And you also don't use any of your Ultra Hand abilities, like Ultra Hand or Fuse or really anything, unless you just want to gimp the whole fight, fly up into the air with a rocket, and just rain down with arrows. Like I said, the Demon Dragon battle at the end was very climactic. No matter how easy it was an awesome ending to this game. I just wish the actual battle against Ganondorf was more intense, because for him to take out all the past sages and even King Rauru himself was so powerful that the only way to stop him was to imprison him for multiple years. It's kind of insane that Link can just run up and just completely obliterate him in a couple of minutes. Splatoon also suffers from the same problem, in my opinion. Like Splatoon 2, that literally just copied the final boss from the first game but made it even worse, where you're not even moving on the battle stage, you're just standing in this middle circular platform of the arena until eventually you just keep shooting the hands back and it moves into phase 2, where you're just grinding on some rails and blasting the hands back again. It's nothing super special. Splatoon 3, also the same issue, where it's a really climactic looking boss battle out in space, but essentially you're just walking up to Mr. Grizz, spraying him in the stomach, and then throwing Small Fry at one of the weak spots. And a lot of these boss battles have fun second phases that are pretty climactic and cool ways to end the game, but it's just that first phase. It's just like the actual battle itself never is good enough to be really memorable in any way. Like during your playthrough of a Splatoon story, there's so many different things that they could utilize in a boss battle, like ink rails and sponges and grind rails. There's so much, not to mention all the various different weapons that are in the game now. There's like 11 different classes in total, and for some reason we only fight the final boss with a regular splatter shot. I would love a boss battle that actually required you to use different weapons for specific ways to take out certain sections of a boss, chipping him down slowly by going through your different weapons, and Sheldon maybe flies in new weapons every single phase would be so awesome. I guess I get the whole point of Side Order's boss being simple and quick is simply due to the fact that you have to keep going up here and battling it over and over again, but at least for the first time they could have done something more unique, like the first time you actually fight this final boss, have some more elements to it besides just continuously going around in circles and taking out these orbs and then taking him out in the center. It's something that we've already done in the very first boss of the game, once again, the Mario Odyssey effect of fighting the same boss again just for the sake of fighting the same boss again. Luigi's Mansion 3, another example of an excellent game with a very mediocre final boss battle. I mean, against the King Boo, you really by this time, especially 3 games into the series, expect something really dramatic, really insane, but even the past 2 games had better final boss battles than this one. You're literally just at the top of the hotel, running around and shooting spiked balls at King Boo. It's nothing super special, and you just have to figure out which ones are the clones and which ones are the real ones. It's boring. Like, they literally incorporated something called the super suction, and it's used like only 3 times the entire base of the game. And if I'm not mistaken, it's only needed one of those times. The other 2 are for some extra gems and coins that you can collect. So, like, why didn't they just reuse this again? It'd been really cool to have some type of super suction ability while fighting the final boss. It's just like a mechanic that they didn't even want to do anything with. And also, not to mention the main mechanic of Luigi being in this game, I feel like he was only just there just to flip King Boo over with you. Like, that was his only role in this battle. Another example, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, one of my favorite video games of all time. And literally the only, and I mean only, issue that I can come up with for this game is the final boss battle. The boss battles in this game are generally really good, so I don't know what happened with the final battle, where I thought the whole entire time it was our goal to get to the top of DK Island to fight the final boss on the ship that's literally sitting at the top of the island. You don't even go near the ship. Instead, you fight the final boss inside of the mountain in this dark kind of lava-filled cave, and it's just a very boring battle where he's running back and forth and you jump on his back, and he's like an extremely forgettable villain. Yeah, Lord Frederick? Why is his name Frederick? Everybody run! Frederick is here! Like, he just looks like he smells like beef. But at the same time, some games does it extremely well. For instance, Pikmin 4 incorporated all the different Pikmin types for a very epic final boss against the ancient Sirehound that I thoroughly enjoyed. And also, Pikmin 2 and 3 had great final bosses that also incorporated tons of the Pikmin as well. Twilight Princess had a phenomenal ending that was a big volley back and forth with a puppet Zelda, then followed up with a giant Ganon boss battle using Midna and Wolf Link, a main mechanic of that game, then having a horse duel with Link and Zelda versus Ganondorf in the Hyrule field, and then entering a Phase 4 1v1 sword duel in the field against Ganondorf. It's just so good. Even Mario Galaxy 1 did it so well. Yes, it was the same boss battle over and over again of smacking Bowser around a planet, but this time they incorporated some new mechanics, like the giant boulders that you can find in many different galaxies that Bowser would turn into and having to wait and smack his head, or smacking him with these sling pod plants that knock him over when he turns into a giant spiked ball, which does all lead back to a familiar battle but a more intense one. But I do understand it still is that Odyssey effect of fighting that same boss again. So yeah, I think you get my point. But the whole point of this is just I want better endings to these games, and sometimes it's the only thing that's dragging the games down. Like, seriously, if some of these games just had better final boss battles or better endings, they would be perfect 10 out of 10s. That includes things like Luigi's Mansion 3 and even Tropical Freeze in my opinion, and even Super Mario Odyssey could have been a little bit better. Same with Breath of the Wild and just most of the games that I've showed off already. And that's why I believe HAL Labs has found the formula. They find ways to incorporate the main mechanics of the game into the final boss, and also have multiple different phases of actual battling the boss and big climactic sequences. I love what HAL Labs have been doing, and I hope they can just continue to keep it going. But no, like, seriously, who is Frederick?